What if I told you that it's actually really easy to get ahead of 99% of people in the span of 6 months, just because they're all focusing on the wrong things? Now, to put it in perspective, just last year at the age of 24, I ended up selling my agency for millions and ended up changing my life. But this is the video that I would want to watch as the version of myself when we lost our house, when I almost took my life, and when I was watching my mom skip meals because she couldn't afford to feed us both. And this is the video that I wish I saw then. So look, I know it might sound simple, but hear me out. The number one thing that is ruining your life right now is Instagram and your phone. Think about how often you check your phone and check your notifications when you're working. That is not a 5-minute distraction. That is an hour distraction because your brain only goes into defocus after about 20 minutes. And once you pull it away, it takes a while to refocus. So think about the majority of people. What are they spending their time doing? They just go to work, they do the same old routine, and when they get home, they sit and scroll on TikTok. So imagine, just to get ahead of them, all you have to do is you have to fix your focus, and you just have to do the things that you know you have to do. So if I take myself for an example, I was in the same situation. I was constantly addicted to my phone. I was playing games, I was going out with friends, I was doing all these things, but they were not benefiting the way of my life that I envisioned. So here's how you can actually fix it. And trust me, I'm not telling you to never go on TikTok again. That's unrealistic. But what I am going to teach you is the discipline. So here are some things that I did to fix my discipline and stopped relying on willpower. The number one thing was simply I was struggling to wake up early. I knew I needed to wake up early to get more work done, but it was a struggle for me. I hadn't built that discipline. It wasn't something I liked doing, especially in winter. So to change that, instead what I started doing is I used an alarm app which would literally not shut up until I stood up, I got to my kitchen, and I scanned a QR code. That way I was already up and I would get busy with my day, instead of sleeping in and just relying on my willpower to get up whenever. The next thing that was bothering me is I knew I was working from home, but I was so distracted by my phone. I was not productive. I was constantly watching YouTube on another screen, and I felt that I wasn't making much progress. So to stop that, I put my phone off and I put it in another room. The effort to go back to it was just way too high for me to be able to justify that. So now I cut out the habit through mere discipline without needing to check my phone 24/7 and every 5 seconds I see a notification. And another simple trick that I use is I just used an app blocker. So I literally cannot access YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, whatever it was during certain periods of time, and only will give myself about a 5-minute break after an hour of work to go and do that. So it was almost like a reward system, and that worked incredibly well for me. Another thing that's so simple is just simplifying your routine. I knew that I wanted to go to gym every single morning to start my day. I knew that's how I'd build discipline, but I wasn't willing to do that. So to make it easier, the night before I went to sleep, I would lay out my clothes. Simple things like that is going to change the game for you, because again, no one is making the changes. 99% of people are still going to scroll. They're still going to spend majority of their time distracted, not focused on things. They're going to be scrolling on TikTok while you're working. That is going to put you so ahead. Now, the second thing that absolutely changed my life and put me ahead of most of my peers is by focusing on the right things. And what I mean by that is not the same list of distractions that I was talking about in point number 1. What I'm talking about is if you take a look at the guy on the corner street in his cafe, he's working 9 times harder than the guy that just bought his first Porsche while his team does all the work for them. And yes, it's an unfortunate reality, but there's a reason for that. You need to have systems in place that work for you instead of you working for those systems. And the best way to do that is to choose the right vehicle. If you're watching this and you're stuck in a 9 to 5, try and figure out ways that you can make and systemize your life a lot easier. Maybe there's some automations you can use. Use ChatGPT as much as you can. But aside from that, you need to find a vehicle or a business model that works for you when you don't have the time. And so that's exactly what I did. I found an agency model, and I was doing that in between the other things that I was focused on, and eventually started making enough money that I could focus on that entirely. So potentially all you need in your 9 to 5, if you're not looking to stay in that 9 to 5, is the right business model that is sustainable, easy to scale, and doesn't require money up front, which is exactly why I teach it and mentor it. But With that being said, you just need to find the right business model, and after hours and before work, spend 2 hours a time just working on that business model, and eventually you'll make enough income to sustain yourself that you can leave your job and you'll end up having more freedom and more time, which is the number one priority. And trust me, I was in that position. I was working 16-hour days and I was only making about $230 a month, which is below minimum wage by a mile. But I was willing to do it to get to the point that I needed to, until I learned that there was an easier business model and I could charge more and I could do less. And that's exactly what I did. Now, it's all simple knowing what you need to do, right? But the next hard step is focusing on the right things. And this is where I had the most exponential growth in my life, is I knew what I was working on, but I was doing it all wrong. Those 16-hour days were not paying off, and there was a big reason for that. It's because I was focused on all of the wrong things. So I decided to take a step back. I wrote out all of my goals, I reverse engineered them, and I decided on a very proactive to-do list that would actually scale me. So for example, I decided that my goal was to make $10,000 per month, which is a big number, but a lot of people aspire to get that, and it's so easy to get. But I didn't know that at the time. So I reverse engineered it, and I decided, okay, well, if I have to get to $10,000 per month, that means I have to have 5 paying clients every single month, which means I need to close at least 1 a month to make it sustainable. And to close them, what did I need to do? I needed to send emails. I needed to put out content. I needed to send tons of messages. I needed to change my scripts. I was looking at all the elements in the to-do list that would actually scale me. Whereas most people are putting on their to-do list, reply to emails, do this, do that, build this, but they're not actually carrying the weight of their growth. And that is a big difference. When you take a look at your to-do list, or you take a look at how you've planned out your day, what are the top priority tasks that are actually going to make a difference to your goals, and cancel out the rest. Put them to the side burner. They're obviously not that important, and that is the number one thing that I focus on to this day. If it doesn't bring me growth and it doesn't get me closer to my goal, I scratch it out. And to be honest, it's as simple as it sounds. It's these habits that bring the biggest difference and the most growth. And that's why it's so important to do uncomfortable things as well. And that is point number 4. Now, you probably see it all the time. You see entrepreneurs and influencers doing cold plunges and saunas and red light therapy and meditation and reading at least 10 pages every day. They've got like this massive list of things that they're doing every single day, and it looks ridiculous. And no, it's not absolutely all necessary. But the reason why they're successful, and the reason why this actually has some validity, is because they're doing something uncomfortable every single day. They don't want to do a cold plunge. They're not doing it for the videos, or at least some of them. But the reason they're actually doing it is because they're doing something uncomfortable to build discipline. And this is something I didn't understand or conceptualize to begin with until I started to do them. I realized how soft I actually was. How was I going to focus on the hard things in business? How was I going to spend 18 grueling hours working? How was I going to sit on a call that was tough to hear from a client when I fucked up? The way that I did that is because I was able to do other hard things in my life. I picked up running, and I was never a runner. I went to gym every single day, even when I was tired. I would wake up early, even when I was tired. I would do so many different things. I started doing the cold showers and the cold plunges. And they were not things that I inherently wanted to do, but I knew I needed to do them to build this neural pathway where I knew that I could do hard things and that most things seemed easier. So when I sat down for a 16-hour workday, it felt easy because I just had done something so difficult before. And that's why it's important to do those hard things and build it into your routine, because it builds discipline. And discipline is what gets you through to your goals when motivation can't. It's also those small habits that allow you to level up so that you associate yourself with someone that is willing to work. And 99% of people are so comfortable. They don't want to wake up early. They want to lay in bed. They want to sleep in. They want to skip gym because it feels like the right thing to do. Don't be that person. Level yourself up by doing difficult things and building that discipline. Which brings me to the last thing that you definitely need to do. You need to disappear. And I don't necessarily mean that in the literal way. But what I mean is that some people take the biggest difference and the biggest growth in their life by removing themselves from things that don't serve them anymore. So remove yourself and disappear from partying, disappear from the habits that are keeping you back, disappear from the traits that you carry that are not you anymore. So for example, when I was first starting out on my entrepreneurial journey, I knew that to make a big difference, I had to cut a lot of my habits. I was mostly partying every single weekend. I was playing games with my friends. I was going out all the time. I was seeing friends when I should have been working. And instead of cutting them out, like most people will tell you to do, I just put boundaries in place. And that's all it took to make a huge difference in my leveling up, because I was able to say no. I learned how to say no to the things that didn't serve me at the time. And I put some steps in place to make sure I didn't. So when friends would ask me to go out, I would say, look, I'll come out for 2 hours and that's it. And I would slowly cut my habits from going out for the whole weekend to being a lot more disciplined, a lot more measured. And that way I wasn't drinking as often. I wasn't spending as much money. I wasn't, putting in bad habits, and also was working in the times that I should have been going out with friends. And that is the biggest thing that shifted in my life, is I changed my priorities and I disappeared from that version of myself that I no longer wanted to be. And so that is exactly how you can change your life. Now, I am helping tons of women change their lives as well. I was that woman who wanted to see a big difference in my life before waiting for a man to come in and change it, or to change my mom's life because we needed it right then. And I wasn't willing to do OnlyFans or anything like that. So the agency model is what took and changed my life. And that's exactly why I coach and mentor women on that. It's not free and it's not cheap, but it is a one-on-one mentorship where I literally work alongside you. So that sounds like you, go down below, book in a call, and I'll see you on the other side. But for everyone else, I look forward to the next video. I'll see you there.